Perforate will receive a 234% damage effectiveness increase in 3.25. Now Perforate has more area effect while you are in sand stance. In 3.25, your seismic try is gonna give you 50% more area effect on your exerted attacks. So with blood and sand, you get another 15% more. With the Slayer Ascendancy, you get up to 50 increased area effect. Then you get roughly 30% from Pulverize and some investment on a tree. You can also increase your AoE, resulting in pretty huge slams. Now the footage that I'm showing is without Warcries, and the AoE is still pretty great. Now another thing that is unique about Perforate is that it has a blood mode, which is supposed to be single target mode for this skill. And in this blood mode, you will send out small spikes which will overlap. With a little bit of AoE investment, you will get roughly 7 overlaps without an Ashes on average. With a not perfect Ashes, it will be 8 overlaps and 9 overlaps with a perfect Ashes on average. Now I've tested this build before 3.25. It took me roughly 10 hours to get to 2 Void Stones in a fresh start league. So you can definitely day one get to high tier red maps with this build. They will remove the added physical damage that it initially had, which was quite a bit from the gem. So in the early game, Perforate is not as much buffed as it is in the mid and end game. Now another disadvantage of Perforate is that you need to stand up pretty close to your opponents to get overlaps, and you have a pretty high mana cost in 3.25. So how do you get 7 overlaps? To get 7 overlaps, you need to stand rather close, and you need some increased AoE. Now the increased AoE that you get from Pulverize is enough, and you would always use Pulverize because it gives increased area effect and less attack speed. You don't want to have too many attacks with Perforate since it's a slam and you want to exert your attacks. So on average you will get roughly 7 overlaps if you stand very close, have the Pulverize support. And so the footage that I'm showing is I have 100% chance to poison, and I reflect the poison that I inflict. And this way I can count the amount of hits that I deal. Now here I have a perfect Ashes. With perfect Ashes you usually have 9 hits per attack. Sometimes you have 8, sometimes you even have 10, but 10 is pretty rare. And with a not perfect Ashes, so basically below 29%, so with a below 30% quality Ashes, you will still get a lot of hits, roughly on average 8 hits per attack. And for the early game POB, so this is basically the gear that I got in my Exegeta run. So 10 hours, this is what I had after 10 hours. And I adjusted the tree for 3.25 because our mana cost is gonna increase. So you could, if you don't want to click these mana cost nodes, you could also use life tap, which is I think fine. And so what's important to know is Perforate is a slam. It benefits from Warcries, and to make efficient use of Warcries you want these Warcry speed nodes, otherwise you're gonna spend like a half a second to cast Warcries, which is even 0.6 in this case. It's not very ideal. And you also get a little bit of extra damage for each time you've Warcried recently. You also want to pick this node because this one gives you Warcries exert an additional attack, which is really good. You get a little bit of cooldown recovery rate. And this mastery is pretty important. Warcries cannot exert travel skills. Later on you can craft this as a belt suffix. This one actually will help your performance, graphics performance, because it will remove corpses and they won't render, and it will basically you won't die to detonate that with this. And I click these nodes. These nodes are not very efficient without the intimidate. So the main reason I'm clicking this is for the intimidate. Gives me a lot of that extra damage. So once you get intimidate on your gloves, you don't want this node anymore. So we are using precise technique, which means our accuracy rating needs to be higher than a maximum life, so we can get the 40% more attack damage. Now you want to click these accuracy nodes and these two, These also give you dex and int to fill your attribute requirements. And you can also get accuracy on your helmet, you can get it on your gloves, and you can also get it on your jewelry. And a murderous eye jewel can also give you accuracy rating. Other than that, so you want to make sure that you don't have too many attacks with your Perforate. So 2 attacks per second is fine, I think. So this is why I also have this 2-hand mastery allocated with the 10% reduced attack speed node. And so unwavering stance, so we cannot be stunned. We don't have a lot of evasion, so it doesn't really matter if we can't evade. So fortify nodes, max rest nodes. You want to click one rage on hit node for the 30% more attack damage when you have 30 rage. It's a pretty huge node. You want to go for that. Other than that, so you want mana reservation efficiency. Here I'm using the arrogance precision to get more accuracy rating. And if I have life reserved, I get 1 to all maximum element resistances, and you want to stack him elemental maximum resistances, and you could also get the 1% to all maximum elemental resistances if your armor pieces have armor. Your axe, in my case I got lucky with a chaos orb, but normally you will get some increased physical damage and unveil from betrayal on a axe, and then you would craft another mod, and that would be your weapon. So for mid game you use contempt essences until you get increased attack speed, and then you craft increased physical damage, or you get increased physical damage and you craft attack speed. So this is gonna take you like 28 contempt essences roughly. Here helmet, you can get reduced mana cost of attacks, so you don't need to click that many mana cost of attacks nodes. For chest, chest is very important actually. And 3.25 endurance charges are going to be buffed. We get elemental reduction on top of the physical reduction from endurance charges. And the way I'm generating endurance charges is 1 by endurance charge on kill, but secondly, more importantly, I have 100% increased charge duration, and I gain an endurance charge every 15 seconds. So this is an exarch implicit. In this way I can maintain endurance charges even while I'm bossing, but you can do this also some other ways, which would include either you only use a medium class jewel here, or you use a large class jewels with feeded furry martial prowess, and then you use a medium cluster with the mob mentality notable, which gives Warcries have 5% chance to grant endurance frenzy or power charge per power, and this way you can maintain endurance charges and you will also gain frenzy charges. So it's up to you how you want to do this. I'm gonna go with the implicit, chest implicit, spec 100% increased charge duration, so I can maintain these endurance charges. So endgame biggest change is you want an ashes. It doesn't need to be perfect. If it is perfect, you will get roughly on average 1 additional hit in the blood stance, which is gonna be roughly, it will mean that you will get roughly like 13-14% more damage. Something like a 25% quality ashes is fine too. Now, ashes is important for the additional spikes, obviously, as previously mentioned. Quality gives you additional spikes, and it's also important because it gives you increased cooldown recovery rate on your Warcries. So it's pretty good damage increase and pretty much best in slot for Perforate. And other than that, so I also anoint a maximum endurance charges to get even more physical damage reduction and elemental reduction. And I get this axe I craft by using contempt essences until I get a high tier of hybrid physical damage. I need an open prefix while also having the add physical damage and the hybrid mod. And if I don't have an open prefix, I need to annul the prefix that I don't want. And then I protect the prefixes, use a veiled orb, and hopefully it will give me a prefix unveil. And with the prefix unveil, I hopefully get a increased physical damage and then I wipe the suffixes, multi-mod, craft increased attack speed and increased attack speed while a rare or unique enemy is nearby. And that's a pretty good axe. Armor bases are going to be buffed, so this will should give you even more armor. And what's gonna happen is probably Glorious Plate right now is the best armor base, but I think they are also adding new bases to the game which have higher values. So you want to go for obviously for the highest value one, and so you go for high armor, so triple armor mods on the prefixes, and ideally you also get the additional physical damage reduction mod, because that physical damage reduction, just like endurance charges, is additive to the physical damage reduction from your armor. You can get increased damage while leeching on your gauntlets if you want. Accuracy rating is a pretty important suffix. You would craft something like this with a seal essence, hope for an accuracy rating. Maybe you also get a maximum life roll. If you don't, you would have to protect the suffixes and reforge life for life roll, and then craft increased damage while leeching. Boots pretty straightforward. On your rings, you want to have non-sharing skills have -7 to total mana cost. You can also get accuracy rating on your rings. A hunter belt is pretty good, and you want the suffix Warcries cannot exert travel skills. Otherwise, you would have to click the mastery. So your Warcries, you want to link with Second Wind, Life Tap, because we don't have a lot of unreserved mana, and you basically want to use Intimidating Cry, Seismic Cry, and Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry only when you have Herald of Purity, because these sentinels will count as allies, and you will get more damage per affected ally. Other than that, I'll probably add nodes to the POB, and yeah, that's the video.